Jim Henson presents a Muppet Babies video storybook. Oh, hi there. I've been expecting you. Today I'm going to read you some stories about the Muppet Babies. Are you ready? Are you comfortable? Because you have to be comfortable to hear this story, okay? Good. Now then. Now the story is called Meet the Muppet Babies, and it begins in the nursery. So why don't you imagine that you're in the nursery too, okay? Now Meet the Muppet Babies was written by Louise Gicco, and the pictures were drawn by Lauren Attanello. Baby Kermit was sitting on the nursery floor. He had a big cardboard box and was busy cutting a hole in it. "What a great cave," said Baby Fozzie, coming over for a look. "Just imagine," Fozzie went on, "a bear could tell jokes in this cave all winter long." "Bears hibernate in the winter," Kermit said. "They sleep until the weather gets warm again. They don't tell jokes." "They sleep all winter because they're bored," Fozzie explained. "If I told them jokes, they'd laugh all winter." "Anyway," Kermit added, "this isn't a cave, it's a..." But Fozzie had run off to get some warm clothes so the bears in his cave wouldn't freeze. "Wow," said Gonzo, who had wandered over to look at the big box. "What a terrific space station! Those must be Martians." "It's not a space station," said Fozzie. "It's a..." But Gonzo ignored him. "Now what it really needs," he went on, "is a fleet of rocket-powered spaceships. Then I can travel into outer space. I can even get some milk for my cereal from the Milky Way." Zoom, zoom, zoom! Gonzo flew to the Milky Way in his spaceship. He borrowed the Big Dipper to carry some milk back to the space station. He got there just in time for breakfast. That's when Scooter came by. "Terrific," he called out. "You're building a giant computer. But where's the keyboard?" "Huh?" said Gonzo. "This isn't a computer. It's a..." But Scooter had already gone to get his alphabet block. He wanted to build a computer keyboard. "Isn't it fantastic?" asked Scooter. "This is the biggest computer in the world. It can figure out anything, including how to add 1,000,000 billion and 1,000,000,000 trillion." "What a neat piano," said Ralph, coming over to see what was happening. "It's not a piano," Scooter said. "It's a..." But Ralph had already sat down to play. Ralph began to play his favorite song, in the key of G. When he was finished, the audience stood up and cheered. "I wish the rest of the orchestra were here," he thought, so he went to find them. "A parade," Skeeter sang out when she saw what Ralph was doing, "with a marching band and everything." "It's not a parade," Ralph insisted. "It's a..." Skeeter interrupted him. "I'm going to get my baton," she shouted. Da-brum, brum, brum, da-brum, brum, brum. Skeeter marched up and down Main Street, twirling her baton. "What a lovely castle," Piggy said, coming over. "Look at the moat and all the towers. Where's the handsome prince?" "It's not a castle," said Skeeter, forgetting her baton, which fell and hit her on the toe. "Ouch! It's a..." But Piggy was already imagining herself at the royal ball. She was wearing a beautiful pink gown and dancing to her favorite song. Her partner was a handsome prince. "Jungle!" Animal yelled, clapping his hands. "River!" Baby Piggy stamped her foot. Jungle? It is not a jungle. It is my beautiful castle. But Animal had already run off. He came back with 3 plants and a paddle. Animal, ride boat, he said. Then he put his canoe in the water and paddled away. Just then Nanny walked into the nursery. What is that? She asked, looking at all the things on the floor. Jungle, Animal growled, sailing down the river. It's a castle, Nanny, said Piggy, twirling around, and I'm the beautiful princess. No, it's a parade, Skeeter insisted, picking up her baton. Ralph shook his head and said, it's a piano and an orchestra. It's a giant computer, Scooter piped up. I've just asked it how to make chocolate pudding. It's a space station on Mars, shouted Gonzo. Blast off! It's my very own comedy cave, said Fozzie. Have you heard the one about the sleeping bears? It isn't any of those things, Kermit finally yelled. I started it, and I should know. Nanny laughed. Well, Kermit, she said, what is it? Gee, Nanny, said Kermit, scratching his head. I don't remember anymore. Can you imagine what it might be? See? Now that's what your imagination can do. It can transform a cardboard box into some pretty amazing things. Now in this next story, Baby Piggy and the Giant Bubble, we'll see what happens to Baby Piggy when she uses her imagination and it runs away with her. Now, are you still comfortable? Good. But don't get too comfortable, because I don't want you to fall asleep while I'm reading this story, because it's a very exciting story. Baby Piggy and the Giant Bubble was written by Dinah Anastasio, and the pictures were drawn by Tom Cook. Piggy's adventure began about 8, when most of the babies had sat down to wait for Nanny to bring them their cereal bowls, their glasses of juice, and their cinnamon rolls. In a bowl, Piggy mixed up some soap and some water, then dipped in her pipe, just like Nanny had taught her, and blew out some bubbles, all shiny and bright, that floated and glittered, reflecting the light. Piggy watched one big bubble sail up to the ceiling. She closed her eyes tight and imagined the feeling of drifting and soaring up into the air, inside of that bubble, to heaven knows where. And suddenly she was. She was floating up high, out the nursery window and into the sky. She bounced toward a tree and then came down to rest in a newly made, slightly stayed, tidy, trim nest filled with tiny blue eggs, less than half Piggy's size. Blue eggs, Piggy said. What a pleasant surprise. Just then, in a rush, a plump robin flew by. She stopped and she stared. Then she let out a cry, for one of her eggs was unusually big. And what's more, that big egg held a cute little pig. The mother bird squawked. The mother bird fluttered. She leaned very close to the bubble and muttered, "A pig in my nest? Why, that doesn't seem right. I hope you won't mind if I seem impolite. You're a bit out of place, so you really can't stay." Then with one gentle push, she sent Piggy away. A breeze caught the bubble. Away Piggy went, till she blew through the door of a big circus tent. As the audience clapped, Piggy bounced off the knees of an upside-down man on a flying trapeze, who gave her a kick, and she landed intact, smack dab in the midst of a juggler's act. The juggler just flipped. There'd been 9 balls, and now there were 10 in the air, and he didn't know how to juggle that many. "Oh dear," Piggy said, as he fumbled the balls and they fell on his head. Piggy was juggled right out of the tent. She circled a street light, then made a descent near a stadium filled with a crowd watching soccer. "What's that?" yelled a soccer fan. "Somebody block her!" But no one could stop her. She just missed the mayor, then bounced off the toe of a shocked soccer player. The bubble spun out and careened around a pole. Then it whizzed past the stands to the other team's goal. "Goal!" called the ref, and the winning team cheered. "I protest!" cried the kicker. "A pig interfered." "Pardon-moi," Piggy said. "I don't mean to cause trouble. I'm a pig, not a ball. Just a pig in a bubble." The ref tossed the bubble so far that it flew past the bus stop, the toy store, the park, and the zoo. Then it blew through the smoke of a puffing freight train, and the smoke puffed the bubble right up to a plane. The pilot was spelling out words in the sky. He didn't look up as the bubble flew by, but when he was finished, that didn't belong at the end of his go. "My go!" gasped the pilot. "This never will do. A go with two O's isn't go, it's just goo." The bubble swooped down, looped around, and just then, Piggy saw she was back near the nursery again. The bubble stopped short near the top of a tree, where it came face to face with a striped bumblebee. The bee eyed the bubble, and poor Piggy trembled. She called to her friends, who all quickly assembled. "Help!" Piggy shouted. "I think I'm in trouble. One sting from this bee means the end of my bubble." "We'll find a solution," called Kermit. "Don't worry." "The sooner the better," said Piggy. "Please hurry." After much consultation involving debate, they came up with a plan that was truly first-rate. "We've got it!" cried Kermit. "We know what to do. We'll send up a staircase of bubbles to you." The bee hovered closer. The bubble went pop. Piggy bounced down the staircase and came to a stop right next to her friends on the nursery floor, just where she had left them a short time before. Now, travel is fun, and it stretches the mind. It's great to explore all the places you find. But when the trip ends, when you'd rather not roam, you can take it from Piggy. There's no place like home. Well, I'm sure you didn't fall asleep during that story. Baby Piggy had quite an adventure, didn't she? For a while it looked like she was an egg in a robin's nest, a juggler's ball, and even part of the word goo. But you knew all along that she was a pig in a bubble, didn't you? Anyhow, in our next story, Baby Gonzo has a problem figuring out exactly what he is. What's a Gonzo is about what happens when he tries to find the answer to this very puzzling question. Can you imagine what Gonzo might be? I've been asking myself that question for years. Anyhow, What's a Gonzo was written by Andrew Gattell, and Judith Hunt drew the pictures. "Hey, Gonzo," asked Baby Fozzie, "do you want to hear a great joke about a chicken?" "Sorry, not right now," Baby Gonzo replied. "I'm busy working on my most mysterious case." Detective Gonzo called this puzzling case The Incredible Mystery of Me. Gonzo wanted to figure out exactly what he was. "Maybe you're a rare jungle bird," suggested Baby Rolf. "Or a monkey with a banana nose," said Baby Piggy. "I think you might be a blue chicken," said Fozzie, who was particularly fond of chicken jokes. Gonzo shook his head. He knew he wasn't a jungle bird, or a monkey, or a chicken. The incredible mystery of me remained a mystery. While the other babies settled down to nap, Detective Gonzo searched the nursery for clues. If there was a creature that looked like me, maybe it could help find the answer, he said. It's too bad nobody looks like me. Don't be too sure, handsome, said a very familiar voice. Gonzo spun around and came nose to nose with his image in the mirror. He thought, I'd better investigate. Gonzo stood on one foot. So did the Gonzo in the mirror. He took off his hat and threw it over his shoulder. So did his mirror image. He tickled his nose. So did the mirror Gonzo. All that tickling made Gonzo's nose itch. Achoo! He sneezed. Gesundheit, said his image. Then it held out a hand. Why don't you step over to this side of the mirror? Very, very strange, said Gonzo, but I'll try anything once. Gonzo stepped through the mirror and found himself standing next to the other little blue creature. My name is Zonzo, said the creature. At last, Gonzo shouted, someone who looks like me. This is great. Maybe you can tell me what I am. Sorry, I can't, Zonzo said. In fact, I've never heard anyone ask a question like that before. But I can take you to see the smartest person I know. With that, Zonzo grabbed his beanie and pogo stick and took Gonzo to meet his mother. Momzo was at home, ironing tuna fish sandwiches. That's a pretty interesting way to make lunch, said Gonzo. That's nothing, replied Zonzo. You should see how the laundry looks when it pops out of the toaster. Zonzo introduced Gonzo to his mother. He asked her if she could tell Gonzo exactly what he was. No, I can't, she replied. But that's an interesting question. Let's go ask your Aunt Tonzo. Momzo put away her ironing and took them to see Tonzo. Aunt Tonzo was an astronaut. When Gonzo, Zonzo, and Momzo arrived, she was practicing eating in space. After dessert, she joined them and listened to Gonzo's question. I've traveled zillions of miles through the galaxy, said Tonzo, and there's one thing I know for certain. You're definitely not a babbling blue-eyed beast from the planet Bingo. Well, that's a relief, said Gonzo. Let's go and see Dr. Donzo, suggested Tonzo. He's a pretty smart fellow. I bet he can help. Dr. Donzo was an eye doctor. When he heard why Gonzo had come, he asked him to read the chart on the wall. Yes, a very interesting case, said the doctor. I can't answer your question, Gonzo, but I can tell you that your eyesight is excellent. Thanks, Doc, said Gonzo. The doctor suggested that they pay a visit to Admiral Bronzo. Perhaps he knows the answer, said Dr. Donzo. Gonzo and his new friends found Admiral Bronzo sailing. The Admiral listened as Gonzo explained why he had come. You're too small to be a blue whale and too blue to be a white fish, said Bronzo, who was an expert on sea creatures. And I can't swim a stroke, added Gonzo. Then you must be some kind of landlubber, replied the Admiral. Come with me, and we'll see what we can discover. Admiral Bronzo led Gonzo, Zonzo, Momzo, Aunt Tonzo, and Dr. Donzo on a search all over town. At the circus, they spoke to the Flying Flonzos, the Clown Clonzo, and Alfonso, the magnificent lion tamer. They didn't know what Gonzo was, but they joined the search just for fun. They decided to take Gonzo to see a very wise professor. Professor Ronzo was teaching her advanced bubble-blowing class. She stopped and listened to Gonzo's question. I know who can help you, said the professor. We'll ask the wisest and weirdest one of us all. The Great Garbanzo. The professor telephoned the Great Garbanzo and explained the problem. The Great One agreed to see them all in his laboratory. When they arrived at the lab, the Great Garbanzo was waiting for them. He was standing next to a large machine. "Gonzo, this is my onzometer," he said. "This marvelous machine ties shoelaces, shuffles cards, makes strawberry milkshakes, and answers questions. Describe yourself to the onzometer. It will tell you what you are." Gonzo thought for a moment. "I'm blue with some feathers on top of my head," he said, "and I'm very handsome." The onzometer sat silently. "I think it needs more information," said the Great Garbanzo. Gonzo thought a little longer. This isn't so easy. "You can brush your teeth and sing the Itsy Bitsy Spider at the same time," pointed out Sonzo. "You like tuna fish sandwiches with ketchup," said Momzo. "You can blow a bubble shaped like a pepperoni pizza," added Professor Ronzo. One by one, Gonzo's friends spoke. The onzometer began to make a whirring noise. After a while, the whirring changed to a rattle, and then to a kerchunk, kerchunk, kerchunk. At last, a tiny slip of paper popped out of the onzometer. It said, "You are Gonzo." Everyone was silent. "That's it?" asked Gonzo. Rattle, kerchunk, kerchunk, kerchunk. A second piece of paper popped out of the onzometer. It said, "Isn't that enough?" "The machine has a point," said the Great Garbanzo. "You may not know exactly what you are, but you certainly know who you are." Gonzo thought about all the wonderful things his friends had told the onzometer about him, and he smiled. "I'm Gonzo," he declared happily, "and that is enough for me." Rattle, kerchunk, kerchunk, kerchunk. Out of the onzometer popped still another piece of paper. It said, "I'm glad that's settled. Now who wants a strawberry milkshake?" The onzometer whipped up milkshakes for the whole crowd. As Gonzo sipped his shake, he began to think about his friends back in the nursery. "I'd better be getting home," he said. In the nursery, nap time was over. Baby Kermit shook Gonzo. "Wake up! It's almost dinner time!" Gonzo opened one eye and yawned. "Dinner? No thanks. After that giant milkshake, I couldn't eat a thing." The next one is called Kermit the Hermit. You know, I always like it when you visit me here, but other times I like being alone for a while. Do you ever feel that way? Well, Kermit the Hermit is all about those kinds of feelings. It was written by Barry Keating, and the pictures were drawn by Tom Cook. It was spring cleaning time in the nursery room, and nothing was safe from the dust mop and broom. Nanny had hired a house cleaning crew to make the whole nursery shiny and new. They shampooed the furniture, dusted the toys, and filled the whole room with confusion and noise. Kermit had nowhere to read or to play. He wished that the strangers would just go away. Too many people, thought poor little Kermit. Life would be better if I were a hermit. A hermit is someone who lives all alone in a cave with no furniture, TV, or phones. There's nobody there, so it's peaceful and quiet. That's just what I want, figured Kermit. I'll try it. So he scrunched up his eyes and he let his thoughts wander to an empty old cave in the hills way up yonder, an echoing cavern with no one in sight. Now I'll be a hermit, he said with delight. He got a big stick and he grew a long beard, for hermits, thought Kermit, should look a bit weird. He crawled through the cave, every crook, nook, and cranny. There was nobody there. No house cleaners, no nanny. No one to talk to, no friends big or small, no playmates to play with, no people at all. It was too calm and quiet. There was nothing to do. He needed excitement, a stranger or two. Scrunch came a sound which startled poor Kermit, and up through the floor popped a worm named McDermott. "I bring you good news," said the worm. "Pay attention. Your cave is the site of a hermit convention, and you shall be chairman of all the great hermits and give out the prizes and hermiting permits." "I'll do it," said Kermit, politely but proudly. Just then someone knocked on the door rather loudly. "Is this Kermit's cave?" called an old hermit crab. Then he sat on a boulder and started to gab. He talked about hermits that some folks called llamas, who shave off their hair and wear burlap pajamas. Just as he mentioned them, several walked in, singing and making a glorious din. The crab then told Kermit of hermits called monks, who sleep on the mountain in creaky old bunks and live on a diet of sausage and ham and paste little labels on bottles of jam. Just as old Krabby had mentioned their name, into that cavern the merry monks came, carrying poles, for they do love to shinny 'em, converting the cave to a monk condominium. New hermits walked in. They were young ones called rookies, munching and lunching on fresh hermit cookies. Beachcombing hermits brought barrels of sand. Hermits with horns formed an all-hermit band. Hermits kept coming, more hermits, then more. They could hardly all fit through that little cave door. Hermits with pets and hermits in pairs, small hermit turtles and big hermit bears. Hermits with feathers and hermits who sneezed. Hairy old hermits who did as they pleased. Fat ones and skinny ones, all shapes and sizes, danced up to Kermit for permits and prizes. The cave was so full, Kermit had to cry, "Stop!" And just as he did, his dream broke with a pop. The cave disappeared. He was back in his room with Nanny, the cleaners, the dust mop, and broom. But now that his hermit adventure was done, he knew that a big noisy crowd could be fun. So he grabbed up a broom and helped out like a friend. "I'm proud of you, Kermit," said Nanny. The end. Wasn't that the very best story you've ever heard? Well, then how about listening to this one? It's a story about Baby Piggy. Now, do you know how to read yet? Because I learned to read when I was a little older than you, and so did Piggy. But one day, before she knew how to read, Piggy received a mysterious note. Can you imagine who it was from? Well, Piggy tried to. A love note for Baby Piggy was written by James Howell, and Kathy Spar drew the pictures. One sunny morning, Baby Piggy woke early. "What a great day," she thought, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. She gazed at Baby Kermit, who was still sleeping, and sighed, "What a great frog." Just then, she noticed something sticking out from under her pillow. She pulled out a large sheet of paper with writing on it. All around the writing was a heart, made of bits of yarn and buttons and used erasers and pieces of an old banana peel and all sorts of interesting things. "What does this mean?" Baby Piggy wondered. someone has sent me a note. And this writing, why, it must be a secret code. Piggy looked at Kermit and sighed once again. I'll bet it's a love note from Kermit. I'll imagine what it says. I know the kinds of things he would say to me if only he were brave enough. Baby Piggy imagined the note to say, I love you, Piggy. It's plain to see. Please, oh please, will you marry me? Marriage, Piggy thought. I'm so young. But yes, Kermie, I will marry you. She imagined herself walking down the aisle to the tune of Here Comes the Pig. All their friends were at the wedding. Everyone was having fun. I could dance all night, Piggy said, as Kermit swept her across the floor. You're light as a marshmallow, said Kermit, and twice as sweet. But we must leave. Leave? We didn't eat yet. I know, said Kermit, but it's time for us to go on our honeymoon. Baby Piggy looked at the love note again and imagined it to say, a bright blue balloon with streamers unfurled will take us away on a trip round the world. Will it take us to Paris, France? Baby Piggy asked Kermit. I've always wanted to go there. Then Paris it is, my little gumdrop, Kermit replied, and off on the breeze they flew. Oh, look, cried Piggy. There's the awful tower. I don't see what's so awful about it. Piggy, said Kermit, I think it's called the Eiffel Tower. Never mind, replied Piggy. Now that we're here, when do we eat? I hear the French fries are out of this world. Not yet, said Kermit. I have a surprise for you first. Kermit took Piggy to a fancy shop. A Paris party dress? Said Piggy as she looked at her presents. And matching socks. Gee, she thought, Kermie gives me the nicest things. Then she said aloud, now, how about something to eat? But baby Kermit just grabbed her hand and whisked her off to the waiting balloon. Soon they were flying over the tops of huge trees and vines. The jungle? Piggy gasped. Yes, my little potato chip, said Kermit. We're going on a safari. Isn't that romantic? I guess so, as long as the animals aren't as hungry as I am. On top of their elephant, Piggy and Kermit rode through the leafy jungle. They saw tigers and monkeys and strange birds of many different colors. Crossing a river, they were surrounded by crocodiles with open mouths. I wish we were someplace else, Piggy whimpered, hugging brave baby Kermit. Then she thought, I know a way out of this. Piggy imagined that the note also said, tell me your wish, from the most to the least, I'll take you away north, south, west, or east. This time, the balloon carried them to China. These gardens are so beautiful, baby Piggy sighed after the balloon had landed. Not half as beautiful as you, my little fortune cookie, said Kermit. I wish you'd stop mentioning food, said Piggy. I'm starved. Oh, look, there's a place to eat. Let's go. Inside the restaurant, Piggy said, I can't decide whether to have the chop suey burger or the pizza with noodles. Just then, a waiter appeared. Piggy looked at him for a long time. For some reason, she felt as if she knew him. I brought you my favorite dish, said the waiter. It's rubber bands and mud balls, lightly fried in a delicate moss sauce. Now Piggy was sure she knew the waiter. Gonzo, she shouted, what are you doing here? This is my fantasy. Well, what do you think of the dish? Gonzo asked. Do you like it? Suddenly, baby Piggy felt someone poking her in the ribs. It was Gonzo. She was back in the nursery. Nanny had already brought in breakfast. Do you like it? Gonzo asked again. Like what? Said Piggy. My note, said Gonzo. I made it all by myself. This note is from you? Gonzo nodded. I should have known, said Piggy. She tried to hide her disappointment. Piggy marched over to Kermit, who was standing by the breakfast table. Kermie, she said, I can't believe this love note isn't from you. She wiped away a tear. After all, you called me your little marshmallow, your little gumdrop, your little fortune cookie, even your little potato chip. Gee, said Kermit, shaking his head, I don't know what you're talking about, but you sure sound hungry. Why don't you eat breakfast? Baby Piggy sat down at the breakfast table and began to eat. There's nothing like a little cinnamon toast, jam, oatmeal, scrambled eggs, orange juice, and a banana to make you feel better, she said with a sigh. As they were eating, Kermit leaned over and said, Piggy, will you... Yes? Piggy asked eagerly. Will you play with me after breakfast? Baby Piggy smiled sweetly. Of course I will, my little Kermie. Let's pretend we're going on a trip around the world in a big blue balloon. Okay, said Kermit. And that's exactly what they did. Now in this next story, Baby Fozzie uses his imagination to find out what it would be like to be somebody else. Have you ever pretended to be somebody else? Well, Fozzie actually pretends to be me, and I sure hope he knows what he's doing, because it's not easy being green. Anyhow, the name of this story is If I Were Just Like Kermit. It was written by H.B. Gilmore, and the pictures were drawn by Mary Bousman. Shoo! Baby Kermit had a cold. His nose was red, his eyes looked bleary. Nanny said he had to stay in bed. Baby Fozzie decided to cheer Kermit up with one of his jokes. What's green and red and has to stay in bed? He asked. I don't know, said Kermit. He was trying to say, I don't know. You are, Baby Fozzie exclaimed. You are green, your nose is red, and today you have to stay in bed. Kermit did not laugh. He just sighed and sneezed again. Achoo! I need some rest. That meant I need some rest. Then he rolled over and went to sleep. I have failed, said Fozzie sadly as he shuffled away. I tried to cheer up my friend Kermit, and instead I put him to sleep. He sat down on his rocking chair and rocked and thought. My friend Kermit is always kind and helpful and daring. He's brave and polite and clever, too. If I were sick, he would know exactly what to do to make me feel better. Suddenly, Baby Fozzie snapped his fingers. That's it, he declared, throwing off his gloomy mood. If I do just what Kermit would do, I can make him feel good. All I have to do is put myself in Kermit's place. I'll imagine what he would do if I were sick. Fozzie closed his eyes. Kermit is so kind, he would probably fix me a great big breakfast in bed. So that's what I'll do. Fozzie imagined himself as Kermit. He imagined putting on a chef's hat, an apron, and off he scurried to the kitchen. Fozzie found some butter and 6 eggs. He dropped 3 of the eggs on the floor and scrambled the others in the frying pan. Then he put 2 nice thick slices of bread in the toaster. He let them toast while he hunted for jam. The butter started to melt. The eggs and toast began to burn. Fozzie finally found the jam behind a pile of cans that toppled off a shelf. "Oh dear," cried Fozzie as the cans rolled across the floor. "I can barely see because of all the smoke. I'd better find a mop and pail to tidy up this awful mess. I have to be helpful, because that is exactly what Kermit would do." Determined to be as helpful as Kermit, Fozzie ran to the sink and turned on the water. Then off he went to find a pail. He hurried as fast as he could, but the water was faster than he was. By the time baby Fozzie returned to the kitchen, there was enough water on the floor for a seafaring bear to go sailing. What would Kermit, who is daring, do in a case like this? Fozzie wondered, trying hard to stay afloat. Why, Kermit would climb aboard the pail and sail off on an exciting adventure, he decided. So he scrambled into the pail. The mop made a very fine oar. He peered through his spyglass in search of a distant shore. All of a sudden, baby Fozzie gulped, and he gasped, and he dropped his spyglass. He couldn't believe what he had seen. It was huge. It swam like a fish. Its tail was spiky and green. The creature turned and splashed. The water churned and foamed, and daring Fozzie wished he were back in the nursery. What would Kermit do now? Fozzie asked himself. He would be brave, and he would also be polite. So brave Fozzie sailed closer to the creature. "Excuse me," he said politely to the beast, who was hidden behind the foam. "It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Fozzie, and I'm trying my best to get home." The creature's head poked out of the waves. Fozzie took one look and smiled. It was only a baby sea monster who had been taking a bubble bath. The little sea monster stared shyly at Fozzie. Its tail trembled with fright. Then it hiccuped a bouquet of bubbles and dove quickly out of sight. Fozzie was starting to feel very hungry. It must be lunchtime, he said to himself. Now what would Kermit do? He is so clever. With all this water around, he'd probably go fishing. So Fozzie cast his mop overboard into a school of tuna cans, through egg seashells and sailing pans, past floating toast and jam. Before long, he had caught a fine lunch. It had been a lovely adventure, but Fozzie wished he were back on dry land. What would clever Kermit do if he were tired of bobbing about in a pail? Fozzie wondered. He certainly wouldn't fuss or shout. Kermit would just reach overboard, pull the plug, and let the water out. It seemed like a fine plan, so clever Fozzie reached overboard. But the pail tipped. Poor Fozzie fell out, and down he went, and down, and down. Beneath the water, Fozzie thought he saw the plug. He swam toward it with all his might. The next thing Fozzie knew, he was staring at Nanny's shoes. "Fozzie, why are you trying to swim on the nursery floor?" Nanny was asking. "Oh my, you've got a lump on your head. You must have fallen off your rocking chair. I better get you right into bed." When Kermit woke up, he was feeling much better. He found baby Fozzie lying next to him. Fozzie had an ice pack on his head. "Fozzie, what happened to you?" Kermit wanted to know. "Well, I thought that if I were just like you, I'd know how to make you feel better," Fozzie explained to his friend. "So I tried to be kind, helpful, and daring. And I tried to be brave, polite, and clever, too. But," said Fozzie, sighing, I'm really much better at being myself than I am at being like you." "Well, that's good," said Kermit, "because I like you just the way you are." "You do?" asked Fozzie, smiling at last. "Well then, how about a new joke? What's brown and very funny and has to stay in bed?" he asked, feeling like his old self again. Kermit laughed. "My best friend," he said, "the one and only Fozzie." "Gee, I'm glad Fozzie decided he'd rather be himself, aren't you? I tell you one thing, though, I never realized how much energy it takes to be me. And speaking of energy, our next story is about the most energetic member of the nursery, Baby Animal. It's called Animal Go Bye-Bye, and it's all about what happens one day when Animal decides he doesn't want to take a nap. Now, Animal Go Bye-Bye is written by Louise Gicko, and Tom Brannan drew the pictures. "Come on, Animal. Time for your nap." Baby Kermit had called Baby Animal 3 times, but Animal wasn't paying any attention. He had a piece of paper in front of him, and he was busy drawing a picture of an amusement park. "No sleep!" Animal shouted. "Animal, go here!" And he pointed to his picture. "No, Animal," said Kermit patiently. "You can't go to the amusement park now. You'll have to take your nap." "No nap," Animal said stubbornly. "Animal, go bye-bye." Animal shut his eyes tight. When he opened them, there was the Ferris wheel, and the merry-go-round, and best of all, there was the roller coaster. "Animal, go roller coaster," he said happily, climbing in. "Animal," said a voice behind him. Animal turned around, and there was Kermit. "It's time for your nap," Kermit said. "Come on." "No! Animal, go bye-bye!" When Animal got off the roller coaster, Kermit was still there. "Submarine! Animal, ride submarine!" Animal said. "Nap! Animal, take nap!" Kermit replied, looking a little angry. "Submarine! Nap!" The submarine took Animal to a desert island. "Animal, play in sand!" Animal began throwing sand around everywhere. "Animal, go nap!" Kermit said, popping up right behind him. "No nap!" Animal shook his head. "Animal, go bye-bye!" Animal went out on deck. "Animal, play game," he said. "Animal, sleep," Kermit called out as he climbed aboard the ship. "No! Animal, go bye-bye!" Animal jumped into a lifeboat and rowed away. Animal rowed for a long time. Finally, he reached the shore. "Big building," Animal said, looking up. "Big trouble," Kermit answered. "Animal, you'll be in big trouble if you don't take your nap." "Animal, go bye-bye," Animal said, waving. From the top of the building, Animal could see the whole city. "Animal, look!" he cried. "Animal, sleep," Kermit said. "Animal, no sleep. Animal, go bye-bye." The balloon took Animal off to a big airport. Animal watched the jet planes take off and land. "Animal, fly away!" he said, jumping up and down. Animal, Kermit sighed. If you don't take your nap, Nanny will be very angry. Animal, go bye-bye! Animal shouted. Animal sat back and looked out the window of the airplane. He was a little tired after all his adventures. Soon, his eyes started to close. Animal sleepy, he murmured. As he began to fall asleep, Animal felt the flight attendant covering him with a soft blanket. Why don't you take a nice nap? Animal heard him say. Kermit finished covering Animal with the blanket. Animal had already started to snore. But as Kermit tiptoed away, Animal opened one eye. Animal go bye-bye, he whispered. Animal go bye-bye, Kermit whispered back. Sweet dreams. You know, following Animal around has made me want to take a nap. So if you'll excuse me, I'll see you back here again soon, I hope. Okay? And in the meantime, you might want to rewind this tape and play it again. Although I will probably say the same things. But you never know. Bye now.